Hey, what's up, y'all? We just had an amazing podcast with Tim Broom, the CEO and founder of IT Pro TV right here. It was awesome. We got into culture and a whole bunch of things. And the one thing that I actually didn't get to ask when it came to company culture was that you guys have a unique set of values that came from literally a gator chomp. Can you walk us through that process? It's called iCHOMP, right?
It is called iCHOMP.
And it's an acronym. Can you walk us through what that acronym stands for and just like how this process even came together?
Yes. So real quick, back in the very beginning when we were 4 to 5 people, we'd have our stand-up and we would talk about what we were doing for that day. And we kind of ended up with a clap, and it kind of turned into a chomp every day. And as our company grew, it chomped. And it wasn't necessarily a gator chomp, but it was kind of, it looks like a gator chomp and acts like a gator chomp, so it probably is like a gator chomp, but it wasn't.
And you're in Gainesville.
It wasn't because you're like gator fans.
Right.
But as we kind of went through with our purpose, establishing our purpose and our mission and our values, we found that our 6 values sometimes were, as we grew, difficult to repeat. And so we were looking for ways to make it easier to remember and understand. So Don, my co-founder, super smart guy, he just kind of, during the meeting, started going at trying to figure out something, and he came up with iCHOMP, which has a key word for each of our values. So I stands for innovation, is producing excellence through innovation, imagination, and grit. C is creating engaging content daily. H is working with honor. O is willingly facing challenges with optimism. M is we exist for our members. And P, exuding passion, personality, and perseverance. So we took one key word from each one for iCHOMP. So now we iCHOMP every day at the end of stand-up, which is I pledge to live our values today.
And we're going to go get some B-roll of this.
Yeah, I have iCHOMP stickers all over the walls.
This morning routine and everything, because I'm really fascinated I'm really fascinated by it, and I'm really excited to kind of see what happens as you guys continue to grow and if you're able to scale it, because that was something that we got into a little bit on the podcast. And obviously with my passion for company culture, I'm really excited to see how that develops.
Thank you.
So a couple questions going back to like just startup life and the process. I mean, what was the biggest entrepreneurial lesson that you learned the hard way over all of these years?
The biggest lesson the hard way? I think all the lessons were hard.
Is there one that just really stands out as like, man, if you could go back, you would do something a little differently?
I think, where Simon talks about where when people execute and they execute well in a role, they end up becoming a team lead because they know how to do that job effectively. So they're a manager. And learning the difference between a manager and a leader and feeling like that you're making the right decisions for the company. Like if you had to lay, 5 people off, sounds like the right smart business idea. That's what you see people doing every day in the business world, but doesn't build trust and doesn't help your team trust and build that company culture that you have. And, the reason I think I focus and stress so much about culture now is that I've had a bad culture before, and I never want to go through that experience again. And it kind of ebbs and flows where you have good and bad. But when you learn those lessons, you're like, you cherish the good, and then you'll do anything to keep it, and that it drives that consistency to do those things, because bad culture sucks.
Yeah, it does.
And I hate sucking.
Is there anything? So I'm gonna be really transparent, right? Our culture at New Scooters Plus is fantastic. Like we're a giant family, but I can tell you that when we go through we go through August, and August accounts for 25% of what we do. I mean, the month is just insane, and we spend more time with each other than we know what to do with. And I can say that by the time August is over, you start wrapping into early September, you're kind of like, I don't even want to see your face anymore.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, when you hit these bottoms, and when your number one core value is to create and recreate the ultimate customer experience, and you reach a place where it's almost just really difficult to even do so, because you're you've reached a point of exhaustion. And maybe it's just with us with being a super seasonal business. We can't go and hire 50 people to get us through a month and then, downsize to 20 as, mid-September when it's
Right.
all over. I mean, so everybody just works way more hours than their normal load. And it's just this extra weight on the shoulders. I mean, when you reach rock bottom, what do you do to bring it back to life?
Well, I think what I would suggest is everyone is human, and you allow people to be human because you can't help it. That's who we are. And everyone knows that they're tired themselves, and they know that everyone else is tired. And you have that trust to know what is the deep-rooted culture that you have. Let's just get through this, and we kind of rest, and it kind of starts to come back, and you start to see the grass start to spurt up again, and then it becomes a nice lawn. If you have a great culture going into that, that's the way it happens. You can cultivate that. But it starts with trust, and you allow people to be human. People get tired, and that's okay because you're thankful because they work so hard. So you say, I'm grateful for what you did. Dude, let's recharge our batteries and get back in the game.
I just feel like they want to punch me in the face at that point. Get out of my face. I'm tired. Leave me alone.
They may, but that's okay. That's okay. As long as they don't. They may want to, but
no, our team is incredible, and I try my best to give it, just more of the pats on the back during that time, and they just work so hard, and I've tried for so long.
Tell them thank you and that you're grateful because you are.
Yeah. Oh, I most definitely am, and I reiterate that as much as possible. It's just something I've always still been trying to figure out is that chaos, that extreme.
It's probably not much different than the end of the month, on a sales floor where there's a push and a drive and it turns into long days. And then you start the month at 0 again on the 1st and you got to do it again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what you have for you, every other company has their version of that. And you just have to trust and get through it.
Well, shout out to my team. I'm very grateful for you guys, and thank you for all of your hard work.
Good for you.
Just got through the season, and I mean it's still busy. Like I said, it's just a different type of busy right now. Like this time of the year is always busy, but obviously with a huge entrepreneurial audience that listens to this, a huge Gainesville business audience that listens to this, a lot of startups in the area. Gainesville is becoming this hub for tech. Just a place where startups are launching all over the place. There's a lot of money being raised. Everybody's in this effort. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to a Gainesville startup?
I probably kind of struggle with this because I think there's a lot of great, passionate people that will drive, but to determine whether or not you should drive or should not drive is really the advice that you get from people, and it's analyzing your business model. Do you have a business model that can monetize, that can actually make money? And too often when I talk to people, I always ask them, how do you make money? And they're driven by purpose, or they're driven by all those things. And how do you make money doesn't necessarily factor into it because you're not supposed to make money as a startup, and people will give you money if you don't make money. But I think there are some bad business models out there that people have that passion to pursue and they never give up. And that's a really painful experience for them to have. So get good advice.
How do you know when to throw in the towel?
Ooh, dude, I should have thrown in the towel lots of times. So, I just continue to stay with it. So I don't know what the right answer is, but find a good business model. And eventually you run out of cash, you run out of people that, might support you. But you got to make a good business model. You got to tweak until you can make money, and you got to be able to manage that. You got to create cash.
And I'm going to give you just a thank you for inspiring me a little bit this morning. Even before the podcast, he and I were just kind of in here talking. We were in here at 7 a.m. waiting for everybody to get here. And I was, he was asking me a little bit about the podcast and the possibilities of monetizing the podcast. And I know it's something that we've talked about a little bit, and I really said I'm not really sure. And he told me, don't be afraid to monetize your passion. One of the things that I wanted to make extremely clear is that I'm not doing this, for the money. I have new scooters for less. Now don't get me wrong, I'm becoming extremely passionate this podcast and the opportunity to sit down with extremely talented individuals like yourself, and then to interview them and talk about the best educational experience for me. I mean, this is nothing but education hour for Collin Austin, and the fact that it helps so
don't
many
discount
others.
having fuel, because if you have fuel, then you can do 2, 3, 4, 5 times more of your passion.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We'll see what happens. I know we've talked about having like donation based type thing. I just want everybody to realize that the reason Ty and I have put so much effort into this thing is because we just love Gainesville, and we wanted everybody to know that this podcast was coming from Gainesville, and just like I truly believe, just like New Scooters for Less changed the culture of the university and the community. I think this podcast is going to do it in a completely different capacity, and it excites me. So thank you for being on the show. It was a true honor.
Thank you.
And we'll see you later. Bye.